If you guys are ready, I think we might jump in.
I'm ready over here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so why don't we all get started? So, well, first of all, hello and welcome to everybody watching today. But do you know that color is back in the kitchen, that is? I am Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I am joined today by top residential leaders in the American-made refrigeration company, I can get that, True Residential, to discuss the tricks of the trade to incorporate color into the kitchen. From accent pieces to bold cabinetry and yes, statement making appliances, learn from the designers and the brand who aren't afraid to stand out. And of course, I hope you all stay tuned to find out why an all white kitchen isn't the only way to design a timeless aesthetic. Now with me today on the panel are, I hope he's your hometown hero. We have Nicholas Moriarty, principal and founder of Nicholas Moriarty Interiors, educated at the University of Northern Iowa and the Harrington College of Design. Nicholas pulls from modernist designs to inspire the unique, eclectic, and contemporary interiors he conjures for each client. He's particularly inspired by the art and design of iconic figures like Le Corbusier, Walter Gropius, and the Bauhaus movement, and artists such as Andy Warhol, Anselm Kiefer, Gerard Richter, and Jasper Johns. Nicholas has a talent for mastering technical skills and for injecting his designs with a personalized, livable aesthetic, which comes across in each and every project he works on. And in my hometown of New York, we have Vanessa DeLeon, principal of Vanessa DeLeon Associates. Vanessa, who launched her studio in 2000, is an interior designer, product designer, blogger, brand ambassador, and lifestyle expert. Her love for design began at an early age when she immersed herself in her family's furniture business, and she ultimately followed her passion, earning a degree in interior design from Berkeley College. Vanessa's glamorous, yet tailored approach to interior reflects her love for Art Deco, which is a direct influence from her family's Cuban roots into the island's almost untouched Deco design heritage. Her innovative sensibility combined with a keen eye for detail helps her clients' inspirations and ideas come to life. And let's fly on down south with Lori Paranjape, founder and principal of Mrs. Paranjape Design and Interiors in Nashville. So having launched her firm in 2008, Lori specializes in luxury residential and new construction projects that take her around the country. Recognized for her new classic aesthetic, a super clean, modernized, fresh twist on traditional design, Lori adapts this signature style in unexpected ways while fulfilling the unique needs of each and every client. Lori is a sought-after collaborator with leading lifestyle brands and speaks regularly at prestigious industry panels, design markets, and events like today. And of course, a congratulations to Lori for launching your very first collection in home decor with the Mrs. Paranjape Papers. Congratulations, a wallpaper line with lifestyle brand Mitchell Black. And last, but certainly not least, Andrew Shedd. He's the marketing manager at True Residential, a division of the True Manufacturing Company that offers authentic commercial refrigeration refined for the home. He supports the design of entertaining spaces from the architect to the specifier to the homeowner. And Andrew is fueled by his love of hosting groups large and small and a personal passion, mine as well, for food and drink of all types. So welcome, you guys. I'm so happy to have you guys all here. So starting out, so we're certainly really living in challenging times right now. I think between the pandemic, social injustice, environmental issues, because I'm from California, and let's not forget the election. I'm just curious if this time period has affected what may be the most popular kitchen colors being used for this year. Anybody? I mean, are we feeling the doom and gloom? Or are, Nicholas, I know you have this really beautiful orange kitchen in Lake Forest residence. Are people being bright and optimistic?
I think so much of what we're seeing right now is reactionary to a lot of things that happened a while ago, right? So both Lori and I started our firms in 2008, and so we could speak very eloquently to what it was like to start your firm during the Great Recession. And during that time, there was like this restoration hardwareization of the entire interior space. Everybody went really bland and beige. And as we crept out of that time, I think there was just a lot of designers that just got really sick and tired of working in this vernacular of safe hotelier spaces, of neutral seas, of blah, right? And so you've seen so many designers, especially young designers, come onto the scene and really push the ideology of color. With that, I think you've also just seen a trend and a change in the consumer to really understand that interiors, especially on the luxury side, are all about customization and personalization, which is something we talked about last year on the True panel. And they've really just doubled down on doing an interior the way that they want, which includes incorporating the colors that they respond most to. So for us, it's really just been celebrating that shift. And I do think it's kind of planetary. And I think especially now, everybody's looking at the COVID situation through the lens of 2008 as well, and saying, F that, like, I'm not going back to being sad and pathetic. I really want to celebrate my home. I want to celebrate my uniqueness. I want to celebrate what makes, our space wonderful and how we want to live in our space. And so we've just found that clients are coming to the table already wanting to be more daring. And we love that, as our, orange and walnut kitchen in Lake Forest shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I find it, just to piggyback off of Nicholas, I find it to be the same trending effects too. I feel like people now want to have a mind of their own, and just to your point, Nicholas, regarding like the restoration hardware, that bland movement, I think people are trying to get out of that and trying to create their own personal space that really represents who they are, because now they're spending much more time at home and they're not maybe vacationing as much. So I am seeing that shift in people wanting to explore things that they really love, like hone in on the things that they really love, not necessarily what they see that they, a book that they get delivered, that's this big, and them thinking that that's the trend, kind of going into who they are as individuals and see what they really love. Like this specific kitchen that Nicholas designed. I mean, I love the daisies and I love the yellow. I mean, that's like bright and airy. Even though the kitchen is ultimately a darker color, it's still bright and vibrant. And I bet you it matches the homeowner's personality. So I'm seeing a lot of that now, that movement.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, so this idea of personalization and customization, do you foresee it just continuing on until next year and, for the foreseeable future?
I definitely see it moving on to the next year. I think a lot of people are really focusing in the home now, so they have time to even think about what they love. So I'm definitely seeing that shift. I think it's here for a few years, actually.
Mm-hmm.
If not indefinitely. I mean, it's not even just that designers have bought into it, it's that the clients themselves have bought into it. People have such an aesthetic IQ now that they never had before. And then you see manufacturers buying into it. I mean, True has been remarkable in doing this and really pushing the envelope, right? I mean, when they launched their green refrigeration, it was so aptly timed thanks to Vanessa's, pulse on the industry, and that K-Biz was a sea of green, right? And so it's just, I think it's a really perfect storm of everything kind of coalescing at the same time. And I think it's going to be really hard for people to go away from that, right? Unless something really terrible happens with the economy and people have to hone in on the purse strings across the board. I think it's here to stay, if not for a few decades, forever.
Well, and I think, to pick up on that, and, thank you for the compliment on our fridges. It's certainly been fun to listen to what designers want, what homeowners want. When we launched our custom finishes, I think we were, we said there's a small slice of the market who would be interested in this, and we want to meet that need. And so I think we probably expected 10-15% of our refrigerators to be customized in colors and the hardware we offer. And so this year we're tracking at over 40% of our full-size refrigerators being customized in a hardware and a color. And so, I mean, we were kind of blown away by the response. So it's us responding to the market that we heard that there was desire for it, but I don't think we could have fathomed the response we've had from customers and homeowners who said, like, oh, thank you, something different finally. And they're able to really take control and customize that and bring that life and color into their kitchens, whether it's something, very, contemporary, like what Nicholas just showed, or something that has these very formal, you know, more traditional, grandiose, yes, but like this green kitchen here, you know, nobody would call this like a stark modern space, you know, and it's not a one or the other kind of solution. So it's been really fun to see what our customers have taken and just run with this and just gone places that we couldn't have anticipated. So we're just happy to be along for the ride and helping people out and trying to listen and support as it goes forward.
Well, it's interesting because actually, while this may look like a very traditional kitchen, it actually is very modern because you've added, you know, the designer has added this green refrigeration system. And actually, Lori, I want to ask you, because speaking of this like beautiful dark green, you know, the last couple of years actually has really seen the growth of this as a color. And then do you foresee this as a continuing trend? Because I know that you actually recently used it in a bar area that someone converted from their home gym. So that yes, they decided they'd rather drink than work out. And then you incorporated the true residential beverage stores into the space.
Well, I don't want to claim to be like a genius or anything. I'm just saying that they use the bar more than they use the treadmill. So I can't make any sweeping statements besides for them. It was a really good switch. But I mean, for me, honestly, you know, I couldn't agree more with what the other designers and Andrew said as far as, you know, adding color. I think there was a set of fear of don't over customize your house. Don't make it too personal. Don't be too specific. You want to appeal to a wide variety of buyers in the resale market. And I think the current climate is encouraging people so much more to say, you know, this is my space. This is my home. This is where my family lives. And trusting perhaps that if they love it, then maybe the rest of the world loves it. Because I mean, we see it, I know in our social media community, when you share something dynamic, those are the things that get picked up and shared. That's what people are actually looking for. So the idea that, you know, simple sells or you know, oh, be safe, and then you can resell your house. I don't think that's true anymore. I think people want to be dazzled. I think they want to be surprised. I think they want to be excited in their spaces. And so I personally, in addition to designing this kitchen or this bar for my clients where they wanted the refrigeration to be the star and they're not hiding behind panels anymore. They actually wanted to bring it forward and introduce and let people understand right away that it was a bar. My own personal kitchen in my own home is green. My island is green. And that is what people remember. This is my home. This is what people remember. You know, ultimately, if on its face, that's a white kitchen. It just has a green island. The takeaway is the volume of color. That's how people remember it. And I think that there's something to be said about it. I think our house is actually more desirable in the open market as for resale than if we had played it safe.
Lori, it's actually really interesting because basically just what you just said, like as an editor, when I'm looking at a project, and a lot of times it's more on the manufacturer looking at a new product, like we think about what's going to make a designer who's our audience and our readership stop on a page and be like, that's an amazing new product. It's because it pops off the page and it has personality and it has color. So as much as we understand that designers might potentially be specifying the black, the white, the beige, the brown, we understand that when they see it on a magazine page, they want to see the green or the orange or the red. And that's going to make them say, aha, and it's going to be the star of the show on the page. So
well, there's a little trust in there too, that if you love it, then others will love it. If it's, you know, if you're relying on design professionals to help guide you, of course, and not just deciding that you want to, I don't know, start a craft something in your kitchen, I completely would advise against that. But if you have, you know, good design, solid design help and direction, and you love it, then I feel like people are beginning to trust that others will love it as well. And those are the things that are beginning to catch, in my opinion, why it's not just, you know, a one-off when someone really decides to invest in something that they adore instead of something that's safe.
Mm.
Guys, we have an interesting question that I wanted to bring up now because I think it kind of goes along with what we're talking about. how do you guide a client to explore or incorporate color when the rest of their home or surrounding space is pretty neutral?
I mean, one of the things that we do at the outset of any project is we really force our clients to participate in some pretty exhaustive questionnaires. It's actually one of the things that we use to gauge whether or not a client's a good fit for us. If they're going to put out the information, then they're probably going to be a great design partner through the process. And we really push for information there on things that they respond to, both color, from a fashion standpoint, from an art standpoint, from a, travel standpoint, hotel standpoint, et cetera. And so if that client were coming to us and, maybe they're more comfortable in the gray and beige space, but, they have an affinity for an artist that I love, Jasper Johns, right? Or something like that. There's a tremendous amount of information that exists there, right? So it's then looking deeper into those things that satiate a client's aesthetics on all levels for us and saying, okay, well, Jasper Johns did a whole series of gray, but he also has these really vibrant Target series that are in all these other primary colors and things like that. And it's just very, very delicately tiptoeing into those zones of the client and trying to get more visual feedback from them and doing more visual listening with them. And then really pushing the envelope and saying, like, this may seem bold to you now, but the reality is this is something you're going to be, immersed in all of the time. And so in your daily life, you love wearing blue all the time. So why not have blue cabinets in your kitchen, right? Even though to date you've only been comfortable in grayish and beige and all of that. So it really comes down to understanding your client, being the psychologist. In a lot of ways, it's like it tiptoes into that realm of being an art psychologist with your clients and understanding like why they respond to certain things on a fashion level or a travel level or an art level, and then bringing that into the home. Because there's not a lot of clients that actually think that way, which is why our jobs are really important.
I think to add to that, I think for all of us, actually all three of the designers here, I think we're being vetted before a client makes first contact. They're already immersed in what we're doing. They're quite familiar with my aesthetic, which is why they called me as opposed to one of these two other talented people, and why they're calling them instead of me, right? They've already seen what it is that they do. So if someone's hiring me in particular, they're clear that we're going to, I don't know that I want to say take risks, but they know that we're going to really fully develop and make sure that there's a full representation of the homeowners and vibrancy and things like that within the home. They're not hiring me to replicate a page from the Restoration Hardware catalog. We're very clear that that's not an option with me as your designer. So they already know that. They knew that before they got to me. And I think I would guess for Nicholas and Vanessa, they already know they want to hire me by the time they reach out. It's already finished. They've done their research. They have spent months on Instagram, looking and following and listening and paying attention, so that when they make first contact, it's just more about signing paperwork and moving forward for them than it is about, Mrs. Paranjape, what is your design aesthetic?
Right.
And I would think, wow, have you seen nothing? Because usually they're very well versed in what that aesthetic is.
Yeah, for me, I love to actually go into a client's closet. I think that's a really good way to understand who they are, even though they may love grays and whites. But as soon as you open up that closet and you start seeing a rhythm of color, or of certain colors like blue or pink or whatever it may be, you start realizing they're not fearful of color because they wear it. They're just fearful of it being a permanent installation in their home. So the fact that there is that color pink in there, and I see it as a repeat, I would probably introduce some pink into their space. And whether it's female or male, just, infusing it in spaces like pillows and accents, or, an island color, and doing something that's fun and vibrant and presenting them in a presentation. And once they see it, we do a 3D rendering. So once they see it, they're like, oh my gosh, I really love it. And I think that ultimately that's why they're hiring you. They are taking risks because they could ultimately, some of my clients are very stylish and can do it on their own, but they're just fearful of putting it together and putting everything that they love together and making it cohesive. And that's why they hire us.
Well, Vanessa, you touched on it, just like, well, one, we've all seen this like growing trend that's not going away, which started as millennial pink, but maybe is now blush and nude and more sophisticated, and it's almost like a neutral or sort of a unisex color. Another color that you've all actually mentioned was blue, and this idea if like blue is like now a neutral color, and it kind of goes in this, you know, deck with the whites, the blacks, the grays, and now there's blue. I mean, from Pantone and Sherwin-Williams, everyone said 2020 is the year of blue. Now, do we feel blue? Obviously, I hope not. I know it's been a weird year for all of us, but are you guys, I know Nicholas, you used it for a bedroom. I mean, is it becoming sort of that neutral color in your palette?
I mean, for me, I have always looked at blue as being a neutral. It's something that we talk about with our clients ad nauseum, and it's something that I truly believe. I mean, it's the single largest color that exists on the planet Earth. It's the color of spirituality, of calm. It definitively has a calming effect in the home. There's just a lot of woo-woo that goes with it that I just fully believe in. I mean, I wear lapis on my wrist all the time. So like, it's for me, that's just my ethos, right? It's my favorite color. My home is filled with blue in my furniture, my rugs, my artwork, everything. And we really spend a lot of time talking to our clients about that. And it definitively gets worked into almost every single project we do. I don't know that I could even think of a project that we have done that doesn't have a blue sofa or a blue kitchen or a blue bathroom or a blue rug or something of that nature. So it's part of our company culture and our design aesthetic. But I do believe that there has been, again, a shift in the industry to really embrace and welcome that, and to say like, yeah, this is definitively a neutral, and it should be thought of that way. Because it's not like this bold, daring thing to do navy or cerulean or like any of these beautiful powdery blues or anything like that. It's a base note for grays, you know? So it's something that it just exists. And I think there's a lot of clients that are really comfortable with it and that do find it calming, so.
Well, there's beautiful navy blues, but actually, Lori, I wanted to go back to your kitchen because, you know, they're in between the dark greens that we keep on talking about and the blues. There are these colors that I don't know if people would be afraid of because, you know, a lot of people have seen this sort of incorporation of aquamarine and mints and sort of more pastels, and like trying to figure out the appeal of what these are and can they be considered timeless?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, back to the idea, I love that Nicholas brought up restoration hardware so early because I'm like a constant, you know, basher of the concept of mall furniture and mall design. But the idea that you could actually design a space that you love instead of designing a space that you think is nice or safe or, you know, widely accepted as being okay, to me, maybe it's just my design clients and my love for it is if I deliver something to a client that's really nice, then I probably owe them a refund.
Yeah.
Really what they're hiring me to do is blow their minds to make it so much more beautiful than they ever thought it could be. And sometimes that means walking into a room where you've really decided to commit to color or an infusion of something dramatic or a sculpture or, you know, an artist or just a spectacular rug. And they walk in and they don't like it. They love it. So why would we not take that same approach when it comes to our kitchens, the space where we entertain the most, the space where we live our lives with our families in those spaces? We should love it. And early in my career, I used to say, you know, or it's even on my website, these are not the likes, these are the loves. Let's go all the way to there. Otherwise, you don't actually need me to get something that just kind of looks okay. That cannot be the goal.
Okay, playing it safe cannot be the goal.
Never. It's so boring. Like, you're literally spending hundreds and hundreds, if not millions of dollars when you're doing these things. And it just seems so passe to like blow that kind of cash and do something that just looks like a hotel lobby or like looks, and like hotels are beautiful and lovely. We get it. But like, it's just, it seems so like, I don't know. It seems like a different world to like really live in that space anymore. To me, it's uninteresting to me personally.
I think this year is especially, if I can jump in, I think this year especially we're hearing from our clients of like, oh, I never thought I'd be spending this much time in my home, you know, or we're hearing from our clients like, I've used my kitchen more times in the last 6 months to prepare meals than I had in the previous 4 or 5 years. And I think it's given homeowners a real look of like, you know, like Lori's saying, of like, I need to love this space, like, because I can't come back here and be like, well, I'm going to grab something, sit at the island, eat, and then I'm going to go up to my room and go to sleep because I've had a long day at work. It's like, no, you've been in the home since, you know, you woke up, you're in the home all day, you're working from your home, you're engaging in these spaces. Maybe you moved from, you know, the deck for one call and you're in your home office for another call, but you're still in your home. And people have really reinvested this year in that space, realizing that they need to love it, that they need to be happy where they are. And again, nobody wants to walk through their entire day from morning to night and see only neutral, you know, uninspired, bland spaces. Yes, calm is great. Yes, serene is great, but like that can't be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. of like, oh, well, it was a very calm day, you know, like you got to have some excitement somewhere.
Well, and I think the excitement, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Vanessa.
And I think the excitement, it births in the kitchen. Like for me, I've always said the kitchen is the heart of the home. And then the heart has the arteries to the other spaces. So I think where you should spend the most time, or where most people spend the most time, is the kitchen, the heart of the home. And everything else is kind of secondary to the kitchen. So I always focus on the kitchen. I love designing kitchens. I feel like that's where really the family kind of gathers. That's where all the social things happen. Even if you're throwing a party for whatever reason, everyone always gravitates to the island. So those are areas that I love to design because I know that's going to be the most use. And then everything else is the artery as I go into the other spaces.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, I actually, so Vanessa and Andrew sort of touched on something that just sort of came to my head, but, you know, because people are spending so much more time at home and, you know, the kitchen, which yes, it is the heart of the home. It's actually had to now be multifunctional, right? It's not just, now, and maybe it was pre-COVID too. It was, you know, where you eat your meals, it's where you entertain when you have friends come over, but now maybe it's your home office, maybe it's a classroom, maybe it's, and so I'm just curious, maybe for projects that you're working on right now, because you know, as I know, a lot of residential designers are busy right now because everyone's renovating their home from spending so much time in them. But I'm wondering if, because people need to spend so much time in their kitchens, if that's going to also affect why they might pick specific colors. Because I know, Angie, you're like, maybe you don't want it to always be serene, but at the same time, you're teaching your kids in that space and you're trying to take a Zoom call with colleagues, like, does it need to be calmer, or do you need that pop of color to keep you motivated?
Right. I mean, I think everyone's going to have their own answer to that question for sure. But like, please get me out of the beige. Like give me some life, give me some energy. I have never walked into a school classroom that was boring. You know, there's art, there's pictures on the wall. Maybe it's the art from the kids, maybe it's the art from the teachers who are trying to inspire or share something. But there's things to look at. There's things to engage with. You know, like even you know. A kid who has to do their assignment, they have to pay attention to one specific thing. Like we all need a mental break and a relief and some change of pace at some point when you're focused on something. And I hope there's something to be excited about in that space and in that energy that you're in the room you're in. So I think we've seen this big increase in demand for our colors, you know, over the last year, and the inquiries we're getting off our website and tracking all the leads and all the stuff we do. Like, this isn't something that is slowing down this year. It's accelerating towards color and towards life and towards, you know, something that breaks up the day in the home, I think.
Mm-hmm. So for the group, I'm just curious, like, as you're incorporating, because you guys all love color and are incorporating it, are you finding that you're doing it more in the use of like specifying, appliances like true residential, and that's where the color is coming in. Are you finding and using color in the cabinetry? Are you using it on the backsplashes? Is it, how do you sort of make this puzzle work in a way so that you're using color appropriately?
I'll start. I think for every puzzle, there's a different answer, and every client project is its own puzzle. So sometimes the kitchen or the bar you showed earlier, we used black cabinetry, but we really wanted to actually pop out the fact that it was a functioning bar where there was refrigeration. And so we went with color in the appliance and used the true refrigeration drawers there in a black kitchen. Again, the takeaway for anyone glancing into that room is that it's a green bar. It's not at all green. In fact, it's actually a black bar, but the green is just so memorable. But I think for each time we bring something together and bring all of those pieces, we're making a different decision. So sometimes we're layering more neutrals and bringing in color on top. Sometimes color is the whole story, so it sort of dims the impact and allows the space to feel much more neutral because we've used it enough that it just becomes foundational in a space as opposed to speaking so loudly. But I think for every scenario there is an opportunity. So there's a navy kitchen it's actually a bar in Hinsdale outside of Chicago that I designed. And that's absolutely a neutral. There's enough blue in that house. That blue that was not a risk. That was a way to continue, to add continuity into the space and just carry it throughout. So that is not risk. That's not risky. This house is not unsellable because there's color in the cabinetry, which some would consider a permanent decision into a house and a huge investment. This is just how the house is born, how it came to be, and it's part of its DNA. And I think the idea that we, I may be repeating myself, but the idea that everything has to be neutral in order to be marketable is an obsolete idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I totally agree with that. I think first of all, one of the things to just kind of remind everybody as well is that, white and black are colors as well. And then there's an appropriateness for everything. And, there are plenty of, especially modernist designers out there that can do an entirely quote unquote neutral space. And it can be just as impactful and just as arresting as a space that has color in it, right? I just personally, as my own philosophy on design and aesthetic, really love color. And I always have. I view white more as something that I do on walls and things like that. If I have a really large art collection and I want it to be more of a gallery space, and I still then imbue the rest of the space with a lot of color or texture or whatever. And so it comes down definitively to the client and what the choices are for the space, architecturally speaking, too. And the project that's up right now, this is it was a huge house in Old Town in Chicago, and there's a lot of exposed brick and a lot of exposed steel and all of that kind of stuff. And so there's this like innate through line of kind of modernity, yet also industrial kind of qualities to it. And the clients really wanted to saturate the kitchen. So we did this beautiful stained lacquer on the cabinetry with a really pale white oak. And then the backsplash tile there is this gorgeous, deep kind of grayish blue color, right? So, I think it really just comes down to the individual space, but it's knowing also like how to balance that with the client sensibilities, with the architecture of the house, what the desired outcome is. So it's a really big kind of like full circle loop that you have to complete to make sure that it just doesn't look like you took some big, bold, colorful kitchen and dropped it into a house and it's not appropriate. And that goes back to Lori's point earlier about the sellability of it. If it's appropriate for the client and the house and it's all connected, it's not that crazy of a direction to go in. And I truly believe that. This project actually sold, and it was one of the things that sold the project to the new buyers. And funny enough, then they're actually still going in and refacing the cabinetry. So it's like they bought it because they loved it and they loved it in the context of the house, but then they wanted to change out some of the lacquer and stuff like that. So whatever, people will do what they want. It was still a driving decision point in the sale of the house.
Beautiful.
Well, I was going to say, just because this project specifically sort of brings up this idea, because I know there's this beautiful sort of steel colored lacquer on the cabinets, and then just the use of metal, because, you know, we've been talking about these bold use of colors on the cabinets and in the appliances, but actually you can add color through the use of the metals, right, within the hardware used throughout, because obviously the cabinetry, the appliances, the faucets, the fixtures, you know, they have sort of this idea where like matte black is in, to your point, Nicholas, black is the color, right? And are you guys using the idea of metal as sort of, I like to say, the jewelry within the kitchen?
I love using mixed metals and all types of different metals. I love copper, I love gold, I love silver, I love rose gold. And actually, this is my home. When we were designing and building my home 2 years ago, gold started to become, you know, very big. And for me, I knew that would trend in, and now silver is coming kind of back in, and then things, you know, have its time. And when I thought of this, I said, you know, I didn't want to stick to something that I was going to get bored of. So I was like, why don't I just do an element that isn't really used as frequently? And that's copper. So these are all copper elements, copper hood, the copper true handles and hardware. I custom made these corner caps for my cabinet doors in copper. So that's the element throughout the space. And I love black. I work in black into everything I do. People always think that it's some kind of like, oh, well, it's black, so it's going to feel dark and gloomy. And really, this kitchen is definitely not dark and gloomy. There's ways of injecting black into a space and then calming the eye with countertops and backsplash. And then obviously the colors of the wall and the floors are really important. So I'm really into black and then adding in the accents of color.
Vanessa, I promise nobody's ever walked into your kitchen, as you know, and I've gotten to walk into that kitchen. Nobody's ever walked in and said gloomy. That's never a, you know, there is a lot of black, but there's gloom is not something that's involved in the space. That's for sure.
Well, actually, because the idea, because black and white are colors, and Vanessa, you have another kitchen for a client, and I think it was all white, and you still use black like on the lower level, so which I'm sure is what like offsets the really bright white that's also used throughout. So and then Lori, I know for you that I have a kitchen project where, once again, this idea where there's this warming trend, Vanessa, you were touching on it, there's this complete warming trend in metals and like the golds and the brass that, you know, people may have thought were like new 80s are now back, right? But like in a much more sophisticated, cool way. And you have this really beautiful white kitchen that has, once again, this gold jewelry throughout. I don't know if we can bring it up. Yeah, so I was just gonna say, it's another way, right, of just adding a little pop to the space.
So this is actually, and this is something that Andrew and I have talked about at length. This is a scullery, or what I sometimes call a dirty kitchen. So it's a second kitchen in the home, and what it's giving us an opportunity to do when we're allowed to entertain again. You know, a second kitchen offers the option to have a caterer, and you can entertain. You know, the kitchen is no longer just this dirty place where someone prepares a meal and then you serve it in an entertaining space. The kitchen is that entertaining space. And so this is a room that has a dishwasher and a sink with a disposal, and it has refrigeration, it has coffee, it has, you know, ovens. This is where you can work outside of the space where you entertain. This is where you can run all those wine glasses through during the evening without it interrupting the flow of the entertaining. And you can stack plates in this sink in the other room. And I hijacked your gold accent question, Helene.
No, I mean, I'm interested actually, because you touched on it, and I know that it's come up in some other conversations that I have with designers, that they're more and more, because people are spending so much time at home, they are finding themselves doing the dual kitchens. Like,
right. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity. This is, you know, it's a pantry, dirty kitchen, beverage station, smoothie prep, Vitamix, you know, home, all of those things are all in here. So we don't have our countertops covered in the main kitchen, because that is exactly where we're doing homework, having meetings, pouring cocktails. We're doing all of those things in that entertaining space, but there's some real life that happens in kitchens, and sometimes it's a hot oven, and sometimes it's a loud dishwasher, and sometimes it's dirty dishes. And this is an entirely separate space that sort of allows us to have these full kitchens where we can live our lives without looking at all of those things at the same time. It's a luxury without question. We are having a conversation with interior designers and interior design lovers. So I think that we're all sort of comfortable in the luxury market and understanding that clients are looking for better ways to live. And in a room like this, in my opinion, really offers a better way to live and enjoy your main kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Lori, you touched on the simple fact that, we are living in these times, but do you find that then, because your clients and homeowners are spending more time at home, they're willing to invest more into the luxuries?
Without question.
Yeah.
Without question. And I'm offering the concept to the client. So the client's coming and saying, oh, I'd really love a navy kitchen. And I'm like, okay, so which kitchen? Let's start talking about how many kitchens we want to have. Do we want to have a main kitchen, and we want to have a dirty kitchen, and then we want to have a bar, and we're going to add, start to create flow in how we use our spaces. The thing that I'm, primarily interested in my client relationships is use of space. I want to know where you, take your shoes off, tuck your feet up underneath you, and pour a glass of wine. Where is that? I'm not incredibly interested in which color of white they'd like the walls to be. That is, we will get there. We will handle that. Let's not worry about that. Let's worry about where do we cuddle with the kids? Where do we relax? Where do we entertain? Where do we do all of the, that's the space I'm interested in creating, is creating an environment around their lives, not creating a space and then they have to go into that space and figure out how to use it. It's quite reversed.
Well, and that speaks to how you use color in all those very different spaces as well, because I think one of the questions is, well, where to add color? Well, it doesn't have to be the quote unquote dirty kitchen. That should be like a clean white space like that. When you go into that kitchen, it's clean. There's a lot of food prep there. When it does get cleaned up, it looks pristine and white and peaceful and like, okay, I'm ready to start my next project in there. But maybe the bar area does need that higher energy. Maybe it does need a blue fridge or something that has the excitement, because you are looking for that entertainment, and it doesn't have to be a one or the other. And I love that question of which kitchen are you talking about? Which space are you talking about? Like, is this a bar conversation, or is this a kitchen conversation?
And that's a use question. That's if it's the bar, you're entertaining and you're bringing people over, and there's an energy, and we create that with the environments that we offer to our clients and design for them. So I think, the color concept I think it's powerful in how we direct people in the use of those spaces within their homes.
And I mean, there is this growth of ancillary spaces where people are incorporating bars and using appliances and other, because, I think, it's a very old school thought process where you just have appliances in your kitchen, right? And that's no longer the case. I mean, appliances can be used throughout the house. Now, whether it's a bar in your living room or you have a beverage drawer, I do know there's people with like refrigerators in their bedrooms for their makeup, and you can have like a refrigerator that matches, right? Or a drawer that matches everything else in your bedroom, or the hidden closet, right? Or outdoors, right? Because everyone spends a lot of time outdoors during this time period.
A lot of the designers I'm working with, it's a conversation like we just had with Lori, is hey, will you review our plans and let's talk about the refrigeration in these different spaces? And it is let's start in space one, we talk about the kitchen, but then, over here we do have a bar, and, they want to talk about making sure that the ice maker is there, and, what the color and feel of that bar space is. But just like you said, it's let's talk about the outdoor space. Or, the first time I saw one of our 15-inch glass door units in you know, a dressing station where, like you said, there was cold creams, there was makeup, but then there was also like cold towels and waters. And I was like, this is great. You know, yes, we're talking about a larger, luxurious home, but you know, okay, I'm getting ready in the morning. I wanted a bottle of water or a sparkling water, and the kitchen is a significant distance away from that. Why are we running back and forth when that can be incorporated in a space? And I love that mention, because the first time I saw that, I was like, I love this, you know, like, and so did our customers. You know, we showed it at the Architectural Digest show a couple of years ago, and that was one of the spaces that got that biggest response of like, I need this now. You know, how do I purchase this? And it was a whole vanity setup, and I was like, well, we just sell the fridge, but you know, like it was that kind of emotional connection to, I need this in more places in my home.
I mean, for the designers, do you find that you're using appliances in other spaces and alternate spaces that maybe you've never used them as much before?
Yeah, for sure. At least for me, I have clients that now want to have a refrigerator in their vanity situation in their bathroom. So they want one part to be, you know, for beverages and their makeup, and the other side to be for drawers for their storage. So we get requests like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And in the off suites too, clients like their bar to have a full beverage, a full like little mini bar within their space, so they don't have to trek upstairs, downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And a quickly addressing the concept of budget. And I work in a lot of new construction or you know, full gut reno. And when I get a budget from a builder and I look at the line item for appliances, what they're referencing for appliances is a refrigerator, a dishwasher, and a range.
Mm-hmm.
And the number
and a microwave.
and the microwave, and the budget reflects that's what they're thinking. That is, it's such a gross underestimate of what homes in the luxury market are packing in as far as appliances go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such an early conversation for me with clients. This is completely not reflective of what we will be. Well, what I will be encouraging you and guiding you to invest in your appliances, because once we put the study on the other side of the house and you have, you know, a bourbon bottle, somebody wants a cube. Now, you know, we want strategic ice. We want strategic refrigeration. We want, we talked about a warming drawer in the master bathroom for towels. You know, like this, the 4-piece kitchen appliance budget is a very early dream crushing conversation that I have with every single client.
For sure. I always present this back to them, to the builder. I say, is this realistic? He's like, oh, well, you can fill it in. It's just a placeholder, or it's just an allowance. They call it the allowance, but they haven't changed that allowance in decades. It's still the same allowance that I've seen, like I've been in business for 20 years, about 15 years ago. And the world has changed. So they need to also change with those allowances and the times too, because yeah, it's a 4-package deal that they think they could just buy at a spec.
Yeah, I mean, for us, these things exist in our allocation spread from day one. I mean, our kitchen allocations and our bathroom allocations have all of these things in them. So it's, you know, refrigerator, it's standalone freezer, it's refrigerator drawers, freezer drawers, ice makers, you know, steam ovens, warming drawers, ranges. It's literally everything. I think there's like 20 line items just for appliances in our kitchen allocation, right? And sometimes each one of those things gets filled, right? Not often, but sometimes it does. So I think it really goes back to, again, guiding your clients and you know, teaching them from day one what these things are and where they can actually be applicable and where they may not need to be. So.
Right, so then are you finding that you're spending more sometimes on the appliances than the cabinetries and the countertops?
Oh, sometimes for sure. Yeah. I mean, an appliance package can easily get to 6 figures depending on what you're doing, easily, right? So it's, I mean, I don't even know how to do a kitchen for less than $50,000 appliances. That's just baseline for us, right? Once you add in refrigeration and cooking and things like that. Right. And so, yeah, sometimes our cabinetry may only be 45,000 or something to that nature. So it just depends. It depends on how cooking centric the client is, right?
And that's just the beginning. You said, you know,
That's the beginning. Cool.
Yeah.
kitchen.
That's just the one kitchen. We're not talking about the dirty others.
Yes, Helene, yes.
I mean, these numbers can be astronomical, right? Kitchens are extremely expensive today, you know, especially at the luxury market. I mean, this doesn't even touch on when you get into like the Le Cornu range, right? Like that alone is, you know, let's park a Bentley in your kitchen. So.
But I mean, you know, but I'm assuming that clients are willing to invest in that because ultimately, you know, I think you all talked about it, especially like Vanessa, like the kitchen is the heart of the home. And if you're going to spend the most amount of time somewhere, like that's where it should go, correct? Or do you find that it's such an education process to like tell your clients, like, this is where it should be. This is where we need to invest that kind of money.
I think they ultimately know. They sometimes just don't want to believe it.
It's sticker shock, right?
Yeah, it is. And then you realize, well, yeah, how do we skim a cat at that point? Because a cabinet's a cabinet. There's different levels of cabinets. There's laminates, there's melamines, there's stone foil, there's hardwood. But appliances are appliances. And if you want good appliances, these are the numbers.
Yeah.
So I always say appliances equal almost the same as a kitchen, sometimes even more, especially if you have a butler's pantry or, you know, a dirty kitchen.
And for me, my clientele specifically is in their 20s and 30s and are doing this for the first time. So they're really looking for the guidance on what is the best way to invest and what is the best way to allocate these budgets. And so I spend a lot of time educating them. They're not coming and saying, oh, I had La Cornu in my third house and this time I'd like to try this. And oh, I had this in that house. This is often their millions of dollars that they're investing, but it's the first time they're doing it. So, you know,
they have no idea.
They have no idea. So
Yeah.
when you're working with, you know, I work with a lot of athletes, music industry, I'm in Nashville. So this is really like a big push jump. And then they're looking to how to figure out how to do that. And so I'm saying, okay, they gave us the 4 items to put in our kitchen. Now let's really talk about what this means. And let's talk about how you'd like to use this space and live in your home. And let's kind of add to that budget accordingly in not an absurd way, but in a way that really lets them understand how the usability of the house is actually that's A1 every time is the usability of the space.
Well, you know, you can always start with true residential. That's always a good place to start when you're educating your clients.
For sure.
Right.
We won't argue over here. You know, as y'all talk about adding additional appliances, I'll just sit quiet and listen.
Well, I just really, because we're almost out of time. So of course, if there's anyone in the audience that does want to ask a question, please feel free to use the Q&A function. Chelsea, I don't know if there's any that we should be aware of that are there, but I do want to ask the group because, and I know Nicholas, you already mentioned like blue is your favorite color, but you know, I realize it does sometimes come down to obviously the personal needs of the client, but if you had a color that you could always use, what would it be?
I mean, my answer is still blue.
I watched you, and I was like, okay, so Vanessa, is it black?
Black.
And Lori, is it pink?
Well, I do love pink, and really I'm ready to do a set of appliances in pink. I would love to do that, but I'm a green girl all the way through to my soul, and it's for sure a neutral for me, along with Nicholas's blue. And Vanessa, I'm really tempted in new construction for my own house to make it a black kitchen. And so I'm completely with all of these designers, but those are sitting very easily in the neutrals for me. Green, blue, black, all of those things live naturally for me in things that I would choose from easily and not feel risky.
Yeah.
Okay. So funny.
I have a fantasy color. I am waiting for somebody to hire me to do a like purple kitchen, like an aubergine kitchen. Like purple is legit my favorite color in the world. I mean, it's just something that I've loved ever since I was a kid, even though blue is like my penultimate color. But I like truly, if there's somebody out there that wants to hire me to do a purple kitchen for them, please hit me up. Like I'm like dying.
Did we see someone that raised their hand that did want to ask a question?
I think we had a couple of questions.
I have a couple. Yeah, I got a couple for you guys.
Yeah. Okay. Chelsea, throw some out.
So A couple of you already touched on this, but one is, are clients wanting to design kitchens today with COVID in mind, like based on family and less on entertaining, or are they looking beyond COVID?
Yep.
I mean, I know from an appliance standpoint, they're talking about entertaining again. I think it's helped us realize how important those relationships are in our lives. And so even if right now that bubble is all right, there's one other family that we have over, they're over every weekend because like our bubble is pretty smaller or whatever it is, but people are thinking about entertaining, at least when they talk to us and they're asking for our appliances. Maybe that's a selection error because they're talking to us and we're all about entertaining anyways, but we're certainly hearing about that next phase of like, let's get people back into our home. I can't wait for it.
I think it's a twofold. I'm noticing a trend now in people entertaining and having really big or not so big parties in their homes, like first birthday parties, sweet 15s, sweet 16s, and weddings even. So I noticed there's much more of an entertaining trend outside and inside of the home because people can't go to catering halls anymore. Some catering halls are closed. Some catering halls are not entertaining more than 50 people at a time. You can't dance in a catering hall. So people are bringing that into their homes. I know someone, one of my clients just had her daughter's wedding in her Tribeca loft. So, I mean, that's also trending too. So people want those appliances. People want them to be able to bring some chef into their home and have these sort of parties, but you need the equipment to hold all this stuff for these parties.
Mm-hmm. I actually like this question here. So what are your favorite or most unexpected sources of inspiration? And actually, I would be interested to know if your sources of inspiration have changed, because if it's traveling or going to museums, and we obviously can't do that right now, have your original sources of inspiration changed during this time period?
I like what Nicholas said earlier in regards to his questionnaire early with his clients, and he referenced wardrobe and fashion, and he referenced art, and he referenced, their interests and their travel interests and things like that. I think for me, it's client specific. I think we draw that out during our get to know you process. I call it when we're dating, before we, get engaged and go steady. That I want to know what it is that drives them, what it is that excites them, what it is that they are drawn to. If they are an incredibly fashionable person, then we'll lean in that direction and we will follow that. So they may not be able to understand how that translates into design, but they have me for that, right? But I really want it to be a personal experience. But if we're doing a project in Boston and it's very art driven, they're very interested in expanding and creating a collection, and that's really influencing what we're doing in their interior. So it comes from the client themselves, even if they couldn't tell me on a questionnaire what that answer is. Getting to know them and we begin to understand who they are. That's how I process through the understanding of inspiration for them and creating something that's their best self, their most polished self. They're, on their best day, they just got their hair done and, their eyebrows are fly that day. Like that their face looks like, right?
They went to the brow bar that day, Lori.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
that's right. That's exactly right. Like,
Laura, I was going to say, a great note to end on is some fly eyebrows, because we just hit our hour mark. But you guys were all such amazing panelists. Thank you guys all so much for your contribution and your insight. I know the audience probably enjoyed all of it. And of course, obviously, to our audience, we really appreciate you guys all, really listening in and asking some great questions. And I hope everybody has a great time, a great week. Be well, and God bless. Thank you.
Thanks, Helene.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.